Sí. Hola, soy Luis Quid. Bienvenidos otra vez a un episodio más de HP. Eh, para los que no conozcan HP, esta es su primera vez entrando a esto. Es un podcast que organizamos Alex y yo, Alex siendo señor extremo, en el que hablamos de temas relacionados a salud mental en industrias y profesiones creativas. Llámese artistas, llámese desarrolladores de juegos, músicos, streamers, etc. El día de hoy tenemos a Brad Kerling, que está de aquel lado. Es un desarrollador de juegos en Seattle que justo acaba de estrenar su juego Nonessential, que es un juego, una experiencia narrativa en el cual nos cuenta sobre cómo es o emociones dentro de lo que es vivir en una pandemia global y de qué forma nos podemos conectar los unos con los otros estando en esta experiencia. Pero cabe mencionar, estamos ahorita, bueno, la plática o el podcast va a ser en general en inglés, porque Brad habla inglés. Entonces, en el chat, si tienen preguntas, si tienen algo al respecto que no entiendan, pueden hacerlas y trataremos lo mejor posible de traducirlas, ya sea de inglés a español o de español a inglés. Pero bueno, a partir de este momento vamos a hablar en inglés. Right? Well, hello, Brad. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. My cat's just in the background.
Yeah, I thought
she's so cute.
I thought you had a raccoon because I just saw the tail and I was like, is that a raccoon?
Yeah, she's just hanging out.
Just hanging out, being a cat.
Absolutely. But yes, thanks so much for having me. I'm super happy to be here.
No,
super happy.
We're so happy to have you here. I don't know if you wanna like introduce yourself a little bit to like share with the chat who you are and what
definitely.
You do.
Hello, my name is Brad Kraling. I'm an indie game developer, independent game developer in Seattle, Washington. And I like making games. I like making cool experiences and exploring different ideas and stuff. I made a game recently called Nonessential. It is a narrative game that focuses on mental health, human connection, and life during a pandemic. Offbeat, comedic drama. It's really funny, but it has some serious moments in it. But yes, I'm super excited to be here. I'm super honored that people are liking the game, and I love talking, and I love talking about it, and love talking with people. So this is like perfect. This is definitely like my element
Awesome.
of what I like to do.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
Thanks so much for having me.
No problem. Thank you for being with us today.
And first English-speaking guest. I'm super honored. When y'all get big, I can be like, I was the first English-speaking guest.
Yeah, maybe when you get big, you'll be like, yeah, I was the first English-speaking guest at this podcast, you know?
And give y'all a shout out. Yeah, for sure.
But
definitely.
For anyone in the chat who wishes to play the game right now or after the podcast or something, I'm going to leave the link to it. And there's actually the trailer underneath us of said game. Here's the link to it. If you have any questions about it, anything related to the game or to Brad, you can leave it in the chat and we'll do our best to keep up with the questions.
And do you want me to read the chat as well, or do you want to like be the chat filter? Because I see in the game, somebody said, I played your game and I loved it. Thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Go. Yeah,
thank you.
That's actually my wife. Hey, Sophie.
Oh, thank you. That's awesome. Super cool.
I don't know. First of all, I wish I would like you to tell us a little bit more about yourself. Like, how did you get into game development?
Yeah, that's I'll take you back. We'll go back in time. So when I was younger, I always loved games. I think my first gaming memories, besides like Pac-Man and stuff, I really loved Spyro the Dragon, things like that. But I knew pretty early on that I wanted to make games. I lived in Florida at the time, so there's not a whole lot of opportunities, like businesses, at least especially back then. there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity where I lived. So I always just thought that, okay, that's just not going to happen for me. That's not in the cards. But when I was younger, I would make Flash games and actually got started making Flash games for Newgrounds and just posting an old Flash website. I think they're still around. I think they're still putting Flash games up, but especially with the changes of Flash recently, I'm not sure if they're still, if that's still going. But I used to put games up on Newgrounds, and they were terrible, and they were always downvoted, and they were always removed because their like little system they have is the game is downvoted a certain number of times, then it gets removed. So my games weren't up there for long, but they were still little little games. I think I made a game where like you play as Kirby and you have to dodge Meta Knight, and to win the game you just had to jump over him and go to the portal, and that was the whole game. So they were pretty bad, but they were a start. And then I did other things for a while. I'm a musician, so I was in a lot of little bands and local bands and stuff. I started getting into theater, so I did a lot of theater, and I started writing. Then I started a YouTube channel, did YouTube for a while, and then through doing YouTube and making gaming content, I was like, man, I really want to make games. That's what I want to do. That's what I've wanted to do my whole life. So I should just do that. So started making games, went back to school, got my degree, and then just kept making games, working hard, working with different people, and yeah, now we're here. So it's kind of a funny thing though, because like through my whole life, I wasn't working on games my whole life, but I was always doing something that has definitely helped me make the games that I make today. Like learning music, like I made all the music for Nonessential, theater and writing. You know, I wrote the script. I was able to talk with my friend on like how I wanted things to sound, like directing, I guess, in a sense, viewing games more like, and YouTube especially helped with that, of like viewing games as like from a director's standpoint and making like an experience feel good, look good, sound good. So now I'm back in games and I'm super happy. I love making games. It's definitely like my life passion. And yeah, now we're here, and I made a game that people are enjoying, and it's crazy. It's really crazy. Really humbling. I'm always super appreciative, especially with a game like this that's more emotional than my other games that I've made. I'm super appreciative that people have played the game and it really resonated with them and they enjoyed it. And you know, like some comments, people are like, "Oh, I cried. This game made me cry. Like this game made me want to call my friends. This game like made me feel better. This game helped me." And that was just like, it's amazing. It's really good because I didn't expect any of it. It was a very since I'm sure there's other game developers and stuff who are watching this or going to be watching this, but it was very different making the development process, and like it was very different making something that is true to real life. Like it's based in our world, deals with topics that actual people are going through, that I've gone through, and it was nerve-wracking to say the least. Every step of development, I was constantly in a cycle of like overthinking and all sorts of stuff. But sorry, that's a long introduction for like for like how did you get started? But
No, that's completely okay.
It's okay.
Like for the people who play this, we or the friends that I've shown this game, we usually agree that it's a really emotional game and that really get connected with it. And I think it's a really cool experience as well, like to have these different, more, I want to say serious game, but it's not a serious game. It's more of I guess like an emotional game. But
Yeah.
what moved you to create this experience? Like what was in your head to say, you know what, I really want to do
Yeah.
this.
So for context, so for the people who haven't played it yet, it's really good, play it. But for context, the character you're talking to, Matt, it's your friend, and you talk to him on the phone, and it's kind of lighthearted in the sense of like he's a gamer, he's a memer, like he is, and like he acts like my friends, like, and so basically there's a game jam going on called Jamming the Curve, and
Nice.
one of my friends was in it, and she was making a game for it, and I thought about making a game for it, and the game I was thinking of was like an awful idea. Day one, I was like, this is what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna make it, and it was just not a good idea. And then I was like, okay, I don't want to make this game, so I'm not gonna do the game jam. I don't think this game is something that I want to make, so I won't do it. And then it was like a 15-day jam or something like that. And on day 5 into the jam, I hadn't started it yet. And I was just thinking, and I thought of my friend Matt, who actually voiced Nathan in the game. And I've always wanted to make a game that had his voice in it, because whenever I play games with him, he's super expressive. His voice is like, he's a streamer, and like, so his voice has such a wide range of emotions. I was like, man, I really want to make a character that has Matt in it. And I was thinking one night, and I was like, I thought of this story, and I was like, what if I made a game that focused on one person? Because the jam was like very like, oh, use statistics and like show like the spread of the virus or whatever, and like show how numbers are affecting whatever. And I wasn't really interested in that from a game perspective. But I was like, what if I just focused on like one of those numbers? And what if I made a game that really sort of encapsulates and shows what people have been going through, specifically during the month of May of this year, but like 2020 as a whole, of like, how have people been feeling? How have my friends been feeling? How have I been feeling? But just to sort of take a moment and reflect on things like mental health and isolation and unemployment and things that a lot of people in the world are struggling right now. I would say everybody has to deal with, this pandemic. So I just was like, as soon as I thought of the idea, I was like, I have to do this. This is something that I really want to do. I asked my wife, I was like, do you think this would be a good idea? And she was like, yes. And I was like, okay, now I can make the game. Because I was very worried. Because yeah, it's just it's crazy making a game that deals with like mental health, especially but and also pandemic, because I wanted to make sure to handle the topics responsibly. I didn't want to make a game that was like making fun or could be even perceived as like making fun of mental health or making fun of the pandemic. That's not what I wanted to do. So I was just very, very intentional with like every single word in the script, how the game turned out, how it was voice acted. That's exactly how I wrote it. Matt did a very, very good job at like every little like every single thing was in the script, except for a few words we ended up changing. But for the most part, he stuck with the script, and I think the script does a really good job of like balancing really hard topics, but doing so in a responsible way and in an honest way too. But I love narrative games. That's always been something that I love, like Life is Strange, and BioShock Infinite. If y'all played that, I just love anything with a good story, Last of Us. So it was cool to be able to make a character that's so different. Like I don't think I've ever played a game that has a character like Nathan. But it's also like I know people in real life like Nathan. So it's just funny that like they'll probably never like people like people like them probably they don't get in video games very often, but this one is like a case study on like the memer gamer of 2020. What is it? What is about it? You know, like
the gamer TM.
For sure.
You spoke a little bit before this of your struggles of releasing the game. Like being anxious about what kind of reception it would get. But do you have any other like struggles like during and after developing your game, like after release and before release, either if it was getting to record Brad or anything like that, or like what was your biggest struggle?
So full transparency, why not? It's a fun podcast. I'll be fully transparent. So the biggest struggle was definitely making something. Whenever I was making this game, I felt like people were going to hate it. I didn't, and of course, like thank goodness they don't. But whenever I was making it, I was like, man, this is like I haven't played a game like this before, and there's something that I was for a while, at least for halfway through development, I was terrified of my own game. Nathan doesn't hold back at all as a character. He has a lot of opinions, and he's not afraid to like. He's very loud. He's very like. He's not afraid to like knock people out like that exactly. But like he's not afraid to call people out. So just to make a game that's like that unapologetic, plus handling more serious topics, plus like part of the character I really like relate to, was really hard. Specifically, like I think it's hard in general. Like it was like a fear of like people hating the game, but it was also like taking it one step further, and it was like, what if people hate me because they think that I'm Nathan, and I'm not. But like it's hard. I guess it was hard because like at the root of it, and not necessarily spoilers, it's interesting, but basically you find out in the game that the root of like why Nathan is upset and why he's doing the things he's doing is he has he's beating himself up because he hasn't accomplished anything. Like he feels like he hasn't accomplished anything yet. So he feels very stagnant. He feels like he's not doing enough. That's something that I struggle with a lot. It's just this beating I've definitely like beat myself up a lot about like, oh, I should be this. I should be here now. I should be here now. I should be doing this now. And so that's part of it. And the other reason was the core of Nathan is like he feels like everyone's forgotten about him, and he feels like he's friends with people, but like they're closer with other people than he is, and like he feels like he won't ever be able to be like as close to other people as he is like as they are with each other. And that's also something that I've struggled with and struggle with. So it's kind of weird making a character that's so, it's like he's different than me, but he's also very, very, like at the core of him, he's very similar to me. So it was hard knowing, like some people might think this is controversial. Some people might hate Nathan, and I purposely like was okay with that because I think that connecting with another human, they don't have to be perfect for you to connect with them. And that's something that I kind of wanted to explore, definitely. But it was definitely scary being like, oh my gosh, people are gonna hate Nathan, and if they hate Nathan, maybe in my brain I was thinking, if they hate Nathan, then they hate me because I deal with some of the same things that Nathan deals with. So yeah, it was like my other games don't have like, those are like were my biggest. This making the game has really helped me a lot, but those were definitely like my biggest insecurities of like my whole life, was just like not being good enough and not being able to connect with people in the same way that maybe other people are able to connect with each other on about. Like those are like the biggest, like, I don't tell anyone that. There's like, it's like the Inception. If you've seen the movie Inception, like what's in the little lock, like what are they trying to steal? That's probably what would be mine. Definitely what would be Nathan's. So just to like sort of talk about that and also make it a game was crazy.
Do you feel like do you feel better about that part of yourself once that
Yeah.
you release this part of yourself to the public?
Yeah.
The response.
Yeah, definitely. Especially after I wrote it, especially the fear about like other people, like me not being able to like connect with like my friends being closer with each other than they are with me. As soon as I wrote it, and especially as soon as my friend Matt said it, there was definitely a moment of like healing, I suppose. It's definitely like maybe it's not like as bad as I thought it was. I mean, I'm sure that'll be something that like sometimes I'm not saying that like, yeah, I'll never think that again. But it definitely put things in perspective for me. Also, it was good because there's a response whenever he's talking about like, oh, I haven't accomplished anything yet. You have the option of saying like, to help as the player, you can say like, everyone's on their own timeline. Like you don't need to rush, things like that. And that's stuff that I tell myself a lot. Whenever I get into that kind of zone, I'm like, okay, it doesn't matter, you know. But just to put that in a game and to like actually click it, it like made me believe it a little more. So I was like, yeah, I'm giving this guy good advice, when in reality the game, especially that point in the game, is very much both the player and Nathan is kind of me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes
It's
it
like,
makes sense.
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
it's like,
it's like yourself telling yourself
yeah.
some advice.
Yeah, so it's definitely was definitely scary to make something so, I guess, self-indulgent maybe is the word, like in a weird way of like making it like that. But it had to be like that, and it turned out well. So thank you. I'm honored, everybody, for you playing my self-indulgent journey into emotional isolation and stuff. So,
No, I think it's completely amazing. Like I feel
yeah.
like in game development, we each leave a part of ourselves in the projects that we release. You know, so I think it must have been really, really terrifying to leave such a big part of yourself and such a core part of yourself in a game, which focus is to tell other people that feeling like that way is okay. You know.
Yeah.
Because
That
we're
was
all
definitely
feeling,
yeah. That was definitely the goal. There's so much, especially with, especially with COVID, but like even before that, there's so much sadness in the world, and so many people are afraid to like open up about things they're struggling with. So I just wanted to make a game that's like, whenever people play it, they understand that they're not the only ones going through trouble. They're not the only ones feeling the way they're feeling. There's lines in the game where he's like, am I the only one who feels like this? Like, is anyone else? Like, does anyone else feel like, am I the only one who's going through this? And it's like, that idea is something that I think everybody thinks about, maybe. but nobody talks about, so nobody knows that other people are struggling. It's like weird, like
Yeah, I kind of get the point because that's basically why we started this podcast.
yeah.
Yeah.
We wanted to share the importance of mental health and people sharing their experiences. And actually, we've had some psychologists here, and to give some advice, and other streamers or other persons that they gave kind of advice or their own experiences, like to
They make
people
you,
share it, to people know that they're not alone.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's sort of like uh, making people feel that they're not alone, and that even if, like, you know, if we're bigger streamers, if we're bigger developers, if we're bigger, you know, whatever profession you are, that we're all going through that, and that's completely okay. I mean, it's some days are gonna be fine, sometimes we're not, and even with a global pandemic going on, we're probably not gonna be okay for a while, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And it's nice to, like, you know, hold each other as close as
Yeah.
possible through the virtual world.
Definitely. Yeah, it's just
Personally,
a
like- Go ahead.
Oh, no, you can go first. I don't even know what I was gonna say.
Alright, yeah, I was basically gonna say that you basically nailed the point on the game, on which I haven't played it, but what I've heard here
You'll like it.
on your behalf and Luis's behalf, it's pretty much nailed it, and seems like an awesome game. I have it open. I will play it late after the podcast.
Perfect. Yeah. The yeah, it's there's so much to it. Like there's so many different ways that I like viewed the game as I was making it. Before I get into that, if I get into that, but this I've never. I want to talk about releasing. I've sort of we've mentioned before that the release was hard for non-essential, but I really want to talk about that again. I don't think there's anything online that I could find about this. I'm sure other people go through this as well. Releasing the game was really hard for me. I finished the game, I had it all ready to go, and I had the publish button, like my mouse over my publish button, and there's this strong feeling of like, should I even release this? It was crazy. Like I seriously considered like this will just be for me. This will just be a for me thing. I won't release it. That's what I was seriously considering that. And then I ended up publishing it because I was like, okay, if one person can feel something from this game or relate to this game, if one person can feel not alone, then I'll have done my job. Everybody else can hate it if they want to. Because at the time, I still thought that people were going to hate the game. So I was like, everyone else can hate it. As long as one person likes it, then it was worth it. So I'll release it just for that one person. So I hit the publish button, and it was crazy. I got off my computer, went outside. I hung out outside with my wife. We sat down, had like a little picnic, and I was stressing out having something like this game out, and I didn't know if people were gonna hate it or like it or anything. I was like, I'm stressing out. I'm freaking out. And about 2 hours, I think, after release, I got a comment, and it was a good comment. They were like, you know, it was on Reddit, so they were like, man, this game made me cry or something like that. Like I teared up. Like, thank you so much for making this. Like we're all going through like struggles right now, so I really appreciate that you made this. And then it was a feeling of like a wave of relief, like that I've never felt in my whole life before. I was like, and from then on, like the whole day I was probably like this. Like my face was probably like terrified the whole, like, for those 2 hours. I was probably like, and then as soon as I read that comment, I was like, yeah, you know, I was like, this is
Party
it.
on.
I was like, yeah, this is it. So then I was like, yeah, I made a game, and somebody liked, people have liked my games before. Like, I've had people like my games before, but liking a game like this, I was like, I found my one person. I found the one person who this game was meant to be for. So I'm done. It wasn't about like how many plays the game got for me. It wasn't about how many likes the game could get. I just wanted to find the one person who would emotionally resonate with it. And then as soon as he told me like that he resonated with the game, I was so relieved. And then everything else was like an added bonus. Like shortly after that, Luis reached out. We scheduled the this podcast here. All the support from him. All this, like, tons of other support from commenters and people on Twitter, and there's so much support for the game. The game was on the top HTML games of itch for like a week. So it ended up doing decently well as far as plays and views go. I didn't expect that. That's not something that I was expecting. But it's actually doing, people like it. So I'm happy. I didn't expect that people like it that much, I suppose. But they do, and I'm very honored. Like, I'm so honored at having anyone play my game. Anyone taking the time. It's like a 20-minute game. So I'm so honored just to have people play the game, let alone tell me like, oh, I teared up, or like, this game made me call my friends and talk to them. And like, it's like, wow, that's such an honor. It really is such an honor. And that's why I've wanted to make games in the first place, is like just to give people, because games are like the only medium that you can like interact with things, and you can like, I feel like you can become more emotionally invested in the story because you're in the story. So just to know that something that I made gave people like such a strong emotional reaction is honestly humbling. It's so cool. But it's the reason why I want to do what I want to do, and why I want to make games. So this project was a big, I realized a lot of things about myself during it, and a lot of things of like the games that I want to make during making this. So yeah, I'm really happy I released it. All that to say, really happy I released the game.
Now that you're saying that this is what you wanted, or this is what you want to work with, are you planning to go big with this idea, like extend it not only for like 20 minutes, like going into a full game? I mean, like a full game, I mean 3 hours, 4 hours of gameplay.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I've been thinking about. Definitely something that I've been thinking about. I think so. The game jam has like a contest type deal. So like 5 of the games are gonna win a little bit of money, and then those 5 games have the opportunity to apply for a grant, and the grant will basically like help with development further. So I've been thinking about like, if I were to make this a bigger game, what would I do?
Ronnie.
Well, I think right now it is a complete experience right now as it is. I would love to explore the ideas and even the character more. I think there is more there. I'm in the middle of a project right now, so I'm not sure if that's something that I'll do now or later, or if ever. But it's definitely something that I've been thinking about a lot. I love it. So I think that there's room for exploring Nathan more. I also think that it could be interesting to explore other characters as well, like other people in different situations. I think that could be something very interesting as well.
Yeah, I think I have an idea of a character actually, and it's based on Luis's experience. He's far from home, right now. He
Mhm.
got stuck in, well, not stuck, but kind of. And I think it will be great to explore this type of character to someone who was moved from his own city or its own city to work to another country or other place,
Mhm.
and he wants to visit, and he can't because of this lockdown.
Yeah, that would be an interesting story. Yeah, I think something like that would be cool. Um, Even thinking like just if I were to make it like a game focused on stories specifically 2020 related, even like just to get a wide variety of people, like maybe even like a doctor would be interesting or something, or like a paramedic or something would be interesting like that. Um, but there's so many stories because I think that it's interesting because there's people have so people go through so many things. So um, to explore Nathan more would be cool, really cool, but also to exploring other characters would also be pretty neat as well. So it's just something that I've been
Think
sort
about
of
it.
resonating on, thinking about. Um, full full games are challenging. Um, I'm sort of working on one right now, but especially like a 20-minute game was, I think it was 19 pages of script. So, um, if I extend the game, which I would be willing to do, I'm going to make games like it no matter what. But when I extend the script, a full length game would probably be like 150, 200 pages. It would be a book,
Yeah,
um, the way the game is, which I would be willing to do.
Yeah. Like
yeah,
it
it sounds great to be honest.
sounds like really cool, like a really cool experience, you know? Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of people going through this, and there's like so different situations and perspective that relate to the same issues.
Hmm.
So that actually sounds really amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's yeah. And just the whole idea of like this is my first game besides, so I did one narrative game before this called A Swift and Successful Onboarding, that also did very well on itch. um, it's a narrative game with voiceover and stuff, and not as emotional. It's not as emotional as Non-Essential, not like nearly, but whenever I made that game, I was like, I want to make more narrative games. I loved
Yeah.
it. So that's why part of the reason I made Non-Essential was like, I want to make another narrative game like right now. It's been like way too long, even though it only had been like 6 months or whatever. But so I think making Non-Essential has definitely sort of opened my eyes of like, or like my interests of like, what kind of games do I want to make, and where does my voice fit and everything. Along my game development journey, I've struggled with like, my first game was like a little comic, a ship. You play as a ship and you dodge obstacles, and
Yeah.
it was a good first game. At least getting back into things, it was a good first game. But after the fact, I was playing the game. I was like, I feel like anyone could have made this game. Um, I don't feel like my voice is in the game enough.
Yeah.
And what is that? What does that look like? What is me in a game? Like chef's signature dishes. Like it's like me on a plate. That's what they say. It's like, what does that mean? Or like Vlambeer. Like when you play a Vlambeer indie game, it's them. Like you could
Yeah.
blindfold me through the intro and have me play like Nuclear Throne, and the second I see the screen shake and all the crazy like, you know, effects and stuff,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a Vlambeer game. Or like Tim
Pretty much.
Schafer. Like if you play a Tim Schafer game, I think I was playing Broken Age, and I didn't know it was Tim Schafer. And from the dialogue, I was like, "Wait, did Tim Schafer make this?" And he did. Um, so I've been throughout developing games. I'm like, what does it mean? Like, what when people play a game by Brad Crailing, by me, what do I want them to think of? And I think I've really hit something with this non-essential, and I really want people to like whatever game I make, I want there to be like some emotional thing going on, like
Yeah.
some um either mental health or like just emotions or human connection. Like those are all areas that really interest me. Um, Even more backstory, I went to school for psychology for like 2 years, which don't count for anything. I didn't get the degree. I'm not qualified. But and things like in my family history and stuff, like mental health is something that I'm really passionate about and really interested in. Um, so yeah, I think that there's definitely more stories like this that I have to that I have to give. Not sure timeline or anything like that. Classic indie dev answer. I don't know when I'm doing what I'm doing when. I don't know, but
Yeah.
it definitely helped me sort of hone in on like, okay, this game is definitely me. Like this game is definitely like a Brad Crayling game. Like the dialogue is like really punchy, kind of over the top sometimes. Like this is definitely what I would imagine if I were to play a game that was made by me. So
That's really cool. Like how you found your voice for your games, you know?
yeah, part of it too. Like I'm not sure. Yeah, it's I go back and forth with like because I do love platformers and things like that and 3D platformers. Um, So I do also like that, and I like game feel a lot. But I really have been interested in um, like writing and making these narrative games, and I think they're turning out well. So
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Um, Going to like your circle of game developers and the people who
Yes.
are coming to game development in Seattle,
Yeah.
would you like to see more games that run not only in this like narrative style of mechanic, but also to go to like more human connection and similar subjects?
Yes. Absolutely. Um, I think I think I think we're hitting a wave. Like, how do I say this? Um, I always think of games like there's some games that do handle like some like mental health aspects and things like that. Like Life is Strange is probably like one of my favorite games of all time. If you haven't played it, chat, play it. Listener, play it. It's really good. The first Life is Strange. It's incredible. Um, and I think there's some games like that. I do want to see more games like that. So I think that that's like part of the reason where I would like to help make games like that. Um, I've realized after making Non-Essential how like hard it is, like mentally, emotionally, to make something like Non-Essential. I think I would be more prepared for it next time around, but I can definitely understand why there's not a whole lot of games that handle the topics, especially like I would want to say, especially on the topic of mental health, I would love to see more games on it. I would also want to make sure that people are making them for the right reasons slash
Yeah.
like handling it responsibly.
Yep.
That's something that I really thought a lot about. But if somebody were to just make a game for just the sake of making the game about it, and it didn't like do anything slash like, or if it did the wrong thing, like the unintentional thing, and like people were like, you know, not getting worse from it. Not that the game can like make you feel worse, but like just thinking about it, handling it responsibly, I suppose. I would love to see more of those kind of games. But I would be hesitant to say like I beat myself up over the script.
Yeah.
Every word I was like debating if I should put it in. So as long as people were aware that words really have power while they were making the game, then yes, I would love to see more. I would love to see more games like that for sure.
In that sense, for example, like you were talking about how you need to be responsible about it. But
Mm-hmm.
what do you think of also the part that there's still a stigma of speaking about mental health, not only in general, but also not only in games, but also like in general. What do you think about
Yeah.
it? Did it like?
I don't like the stigma. Um, I think that people need to be like more open. I guess whatever I meant of like people being responsible talking about mental health, I just mean from like a I guess I was thinking of extreme cases of like if you're gonna make a game um that handles like really dark topics and like the character is going through a lot of like, you know, dark things or whatever, and then at the end like especially if you're putting players in an empathetic situation where they're feeling everything, like they feel connection to like a specific character or something, um just I don't know, like I'm sure there's a lot of extreme a lot of extremes you could take that story that might be could be damaging for people who are like going through through a similar situation as the character. But as far as like generally, in general, mental health, like talking about mental health, definitely needs people need to talk about it more. It should be more. It should be in more games for sure. Um, Especially like there's so many characters that I view as like perfect characters, and like they don't like they have struggles, but like they're not like
mental.
and they're not mental, they're not internal struggles. So like I would love to any of that I would love to see more of. I don't think
Have,
you could mess that up at all.
have you ever played Hellblade?
No, I haven't.
Play that game. You're gonna like it. It's about
I'll play it.
schizophrenia.
Ooh,
The main character has schizophrenia, and it's to let people know about it.
that's really
But it's
cool.
like a Viking game.
Ooh, that
It, it,
sounds
it
really awesome.
it's something like it has a really good story. I haven't played it the full story, but you hear
I
the
should check it out.
voices. You hear the voices. They scare you with the hallucinations and everything about it,
It's
and
awesome.
then let you know like, hey, this game is really strong because it has a schizophrenia topic, and we
Yeah.
need to know what schizophrenia is about. It's not just as you think it is. So it's kind of removing the taboos to say something
Yeah.
about it.
Definitely. Yeah, I think anything like that is super needed, super necessary, especially as far as like depression and anxiety goes. Those need to be like much not like taboo to talk about at all. so many people, so many people struggle with depression and anxiety, and I think it's talking about that more and like having more characters and more representation of like going through like things like that. I feel like I feel like in shows, I relate more to TV than games. Not like relate more, but like story wise, I know more about because I watch more shows. Even though I play tons of games, but I feel like in shows, they like the mental health character is always like they always usually have like OCD and they're constantly like fiddling around with stuff or like they're very like extreme exaggerated cases where that might not be the most realistic, and it's also ignoring so many characters. And I guess goes for stories in general, but like characters move the plot along, and in a lot of other like French films and stuff, like the movie will be about the character and like the character's mental health and like what the character's thinking, what they're going through, their emotions. And I think just shifting the way we view characters from like tools to move the story along to things to fully explore. And there's a bunch of shows that do this really well of like, this is a character that does things and they move the plot along, but the reason they're doing these things is because internally they're feeling like this, or they're feeling they're feeling not good enough, so they feel like they have to lash out or do something like this. And yeah, I think there needs to be. I love characters like that. They're the best in my opinion, the best written characters. But yeah,
I think
anything.
I think that like you really you hit the nail with Nathan, for example.
Yeah.
Like you said, he's like a one of those gamer guys. That's like your stereotype, let's say. Not really, but that
Yeah.
kind of gamer guy. But it's also nice to know that even people like that we don't really, or they don't really show in the media to show their feelings, that he's actually struggling as well. Like everyone struggles, and the fact that you did that, I think is really really powerful. Not just like for yourself, but for other people that might feel like him and that might feel the need to repress it because that's not what someone like him would do. So that is really awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, that was really intentional decision going from the very beginning. Was like, at first the character of Nathan was based on my friend Matt initially, just the way he did the language, the way he talks. Like my friend Matt's, he's a gamer. He, so originally it started off like based on Matt kind of, but then whenever I started getting into mental health and like, things he's upset about and stuff, the character started taking on a voice of his own. And I definitely agree that Nathan is very unique as like a character. There's so many people like him in real life.
Yeah.
And I think it was good. It was a very intentional decision for me early on was to pick a character like him specifically because, like I Twitch stream sometimes and, occasionally I'd have people come in my chat and they would just be like, sometimes they'd be sad and they would be, wanting to talk about like their struggles with me and stuff. And, I realized that like people, it's such a stigma to talk about, like to talk to your friends and to say like, hey, I'm really struggling with this, or like, this is how I'm feeling. Like that doesn't happen as much as it should. It just doesn't, especially like with my gamer friends. Like I couldn't imagine like any of my gamer buddies, like, I guess that's part of the reason. Yeah. I guess that's part of the reason I made the game was just like, it's also kind of sad, but like when you think about it, like whenever a common thing in game development is like, what's the fantasy? Like, what are you trying to give the players? Like, why would a player play your game? And for games like Spider-Man, it's easy because like you're Spider-Man, you swing through the city.
Yeah.
I want to be Spider-Man. I want to swing through the city. Or Batman. I want to be Batman. Or I want to be, I want to kill zombies and be a badass with a gun. Like this is
sort of like
the fantasy
reality.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's the fantasy of like, that's the fantasy that the game is about. And I realized during my game, making the game, the fantasy of my game is just for people to be more open and for people to like talk, which is really sad when I think about it. I was like, oh my gosh, what if like this game is kind of, especially with like the pandemic, but even before that with like social media and like people, I feel like people were already socially distancing before the social distancing, if that makes sense. So
like
just
they were present but not really.
Yeah. So I think making a game that's like that, like just this is talking. how yeah, I don't know. But yeah. I realized that early on.
It's true, and as you said, it's sad to people not to open about how they're feeling, and more in the critical times that we're all stuck in our houses, and it's hard, to be honest. It's really, really hard to be at home without doing it, or without Ken doing anything, like going out, I don't know, to the movies or anything. And yeah, people need to open more about it, and basically what I do is to force gamers around me to express about how they feel, because sometimes it's like they say something joking, but you know it's not a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And they usually like, hey, how was your day? And they was like, yeah, pretty bad, but I'm gonna go play and I'll forget about it. And like, hey, no, go ahead and talk about it. We're here to hear you out, dude. We're not
Yeah.
we're not judging or anything. You can just feel free to talk about it
Coming
and
from
share.
my coming from my experience, I think one of the hardest things about sharing about like how we are feeling is having to face it. Because as long as we're not talking about it, it's something that's not happening, but not really. So whenever I start talking about it, as much as it makes me feel better afterwards, at first it's like I have to face it. I have to face my
Yeah.
feelings. I have to face my emotions, and I'm not comfortable with said emotions. So I guess it's okay to make a space. It's okay to like try and, like you both said, talk to our friends, talk to our the people we're playing, even if we don't feel like we're gonna, find that connection, like to talk about our feelings. It's always better. I read something. I wrote it here. Let me find it in a book I was reading yesterday about like making human connections. Oh, wait, that's not it. But it was really cool because it like made me understand a lot about how I've been feeling about like talking and making connections through the pandemic. But let me find it. Sorry. Like connection requires the courage to be real with somebody, and we're sometimes afraid, and fear paralyzes us.
Yeah.
So it's hard.
Yeah, for real. I think that was like the biggest, like talking like earlier we were talking about like the healing of like making the game and like feeling better. I think that was probably the biggest thing. It's probably what like helped, was just like being, it's you're absolutely right. Like it's being real with other people is hard because like first you have to like be real with yourself, and that can be hard too. And I think like making the game really helps. That's probably what helped, to be honest, is just like finally being like, okay, this is what's wrong with me. Not necessarily, but like this is what I'm going through, and what can I do about it? And the second okay, this is actually what I'm going through, I feel like you can be real with other people, and then you can, um, not move on, but like start healing, start the process of like healing. You have to know, about yourself, or at least for me, I have to know about myself, before I can do anything about it.
And now that I think about it, like going back to what you said about friends or people telling you that, after playing this game, I went and called my friends.
Yeah.
I think it's really like being in the perspective from the person who actually listens to what the other one's going through. Like it really helps into believing that it's okay to express my emotions. And that's something that I just realized while like speaking right now. And I thought that I think
awesome.
that's really, really cool, Like you're feeling the other player. You're like, you have empathy. You have empathy for Nathan, but also you have empathy for yourself when trying to speak out your emotions to other people, because you are there.
And a big part of the game, I mean the whole game, I intentionally focused around like the player's responses, especially towards the end, is like things that whenever I give advice, whenever I'm talking to somebody and somebody comes to me and they're experiencing trouble or trauma, or like they're dealing with some issues that they have, whenever they tell me and then I give them advice, a lot of times it's like things that I just figure out myself. Like, oh, that's a good way of thinking about it. And then I apply it to myself as well. Of like, okay, if somebody's really tells me that they're like beating, just the example of like not doing enough, or like not being as successful as they want to be, or like not being in the place in their life where they want to be. And they're telling me about that. And I'm like, hey, don't worry. Like, this person didn't make this game until they were 35. This, you know, you have time. It's your own timeline. You have to learn. You have to, you're on a journey. Whenever I give advice like that, I realize, okay, that's also, I need to apply that to myself as well, because I have those same issues. So, a big intentional part for me with non-essential, especially towards the ending choices, is like, whenever you click on the response to talk to Nathan, if someone's going through a similar thing, them clicking on it is almost, it's like subconsciously agreeing with it.
Yeah.
And then maybe they take that for their own struggles too. Like saying, you're not alone, people, you're not alone, click. It's like, oh, I'm not alone because I clicked it.
Yeah.
So, because you like believe it. So you click it, and then Nathan's like, yeah, you're right, I'm not alone. But what the game is actually saying, like what I made the game is like, whenever Nathan says something like that, like, I'm not alone, I feel like I'm alone. Oh, I'm not alone. I want the player to feel like that too. Of like, oh, this person is saying I'm not alone, so I must not be alone because we're in the same boat. So if Nathan's not alone, then I'm not alone either. So yes, it was very intentional. very, very intentional. I probably overthought everything. But I'm very happy with, I'm happy I was able to think about it from so many different angles, because that only made me realize things about it and realize what I was doing and why I was doing the design decisions that I was doing. Yeah, super, super, super happy.
Yeah.
Super happy with it.
Awesome. Well,
but it's so cool.
I think we're gonna go now with the questions in the chat. I don't know if you wanna like touch something.
Absolutely.
else,
yeah, I can read them.
I mean, let us go ahead and say it in Spanish. Si alguien tiene alguna pregunta o comentario para Brad, pueden ponerlos en el chat. Ya saben que es la hora de preguntas, de comentarios. Digo, ya hay varios por ahí de Cas, varios comentarios.
Hay varios de casa, ahorita los tocamos. Igual si no, vamos de uno por uno. Cast Stream in the chat says that sometimes she doesn't like how they portray mental ill characters in shows. Like if it's something cool or it's something like edgy, grim and dark, instead of showing how it really, really is and how destructive it can get in your game. What do you think about that?
I agree 100%. Yeah, especially like the whole edgy, like the whole edgy thing. Nathan is a little edgy. So it's probably not the best example, because I intentionally made him like a little edgy. He has some things to say, but he's not like dark and gloomy, I guess. Like there's edgy of like, there's edgy in like the sense of like, Nathan, for the literary people in the chat and whatever, a huge inspiration for Nathan was actually from the book The Catcher in the Rye, and that's also a book that like deals with like mental health and stuff. It's a fictional book, but basically he's edgy. The character in that book, Holden Caulfield, is super edgy, probably way edgier than Nathan. But it's like this, the world is out to get me kind of like edge. And I really wanted that for Nathan. So there's parts where he thinks like, especially thinking about the media and like stuff like that, he thinks that like the media is out to get specifically him. and he's like, why are they doing this to me? You know, like it's so maybe Nathan's not the best example as far as edgy, but you're absolutely right in regards to like something cool or like like, you know, I'm so, you know, like the, you know, something cool or something
Like
grim and dark too.
depression has
That's another
made me
one.
this way, and I have to
Yeah.
avenge myself
Yeah,
from the
like
world.
yeah. And even I think that the idea of like, you know, most characters with depression are like depressed 24, like, you know, they're depressed. Like they're very like, oh, they're depressed, and it's like black and white, like cool blue colors, and it just shows them
Yeah.
sitting down in their bed and staring, and it's like um people so many
Days.
people have depression, and you would never even know that they have depression when they talk to you.
Yeah.
So that's another reason for Nathan being the way he is because it's like there's layers to Nathan. Like, yeah, Nathan deals with depression, but like he doesn't. You don't pick up the phone. He doesn't pick up the phone immediately, and like he's not sad right away because nobody does that in real life.
Yeah.
Um, Nobody calls and is like, "Hey, how you doing? Hey, I'm sad and just super depressed." You know, like right away. It's like layers of like, okay, um, there's something more here, I
Yeah.
suppose. It's, uh, so yeah, I think just more variety and any mental health would be great for characters, but just like I think that goes back to like characters. My favorite characters are flawed characters, and I think flaws are important because like people are flawed, like everyone, whatever you view flaws as, you know, like what doesn't really matter, but like um dimensional characters, I guess. Like Superman, sure, he's a cool character, but like if Superman always just does the right thing all the time, is you know what he's going to do beforehand, whereas like other characters that I really like um are unpredictable, but it's like a rooted unpredictability because like they're a person.
Yeah.
So I think just having more people characters, like more characters that behave more like real people instead of like plot devices would go a long way. Overall, um, no matter what the like
The media.
whatever it is, like at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be
uh,
really great to have some human feelings and a
in a
Yeah.
character.
character.
And
Uh,
most shows and stuff do a good job with that. Like I don't think I think most shows like the characters aren't like one-dimensional characters. Um but some characters are like really good. Like there's a reason why so many people like the Joker from the Black Knight or the Dark Knight, you know?
yeah.
Like it's such a good movie and the character's so captivating, and it's because like he's just he's nuts. He's unpredictable. But
Yeah.
I like characters like that. That's kind of an extreme example. Other characters that I really like.
It's also like, for example, like Thanos on Infinity War,
Yeah,
that you can actually
exactly.
relate to it,
Another
you know?
villain. But yeah, he's like you like don't hate him. You don't agree that he's trying to wipe out half the universe and he wants to, you know, kill
No,
Spider-Man. Spoilers. But
but you don't really hate him.
yeah, but you
I
like
actually got mad when he's. I'm gonna give a spoiler if no one has
It's
seen
been more than
the
6
movie.
months.
But yeah,
That's
it's more
yeah,
okay.
we're
than
fine.
1 month. So I really got mad when he's eating his soup and the Avengers gather and beat him up, and you're like, "Hey, he was eating his soup.
For real.
You cannot do that to any real person. He's eating."
Yeah. And he just wants to farm. He's like, okay, I'm done. Like, I can
Yeah,
go farm now. It's like,
he's
what
playing
the?
Minecraft in real life.
Yeah, for real. He's just trying to chill. And he destroyed the stones. He's like, oh, I don't really want the power anymore. I just wanted to do what I. It's like, what? So
Yeah.
like that. And then other characters. I watch a lot of I watch a lot of shows with my wife, and there's a show called The Vampire Diaries.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically, Damon and Klaus, especially Klaus, one of the best written characters of all time, in my opinion. And he deals with a lot of like mental health things too. Or Umbrella Academy other good characters. I really like Klaus in that show too. Same name, different different show. But
Yeah,
there's
and different
really good
personality.
characters out there. Yeah, very different personality. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of shows that and movies and stuff that do have really really good characters that, like, especially if you bring in some mental health aspects into it, could be really relatable, really good, break down some of those stigmas. But yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So yes, I like that little Kaz stream. I like that.
Yeah.
Damon Salvatore, Chef Kit. Damon Salvatore is the best. Seriously, I every time I'm like, I always feel a little silly, especially talking, like, you know, we got the boys here, but like whenever people are like, oh, you know, this show is so good, like, you know, this, I like the characters in this show. I'm like, yes, but have you seen Vampire Diaries? Yes, it's targeted towards young, like young adults, or like, you know, young. It's targeted towards females. Like, it looks like, you know, but beautiful. Damon Salvatore is like, oh my gosh, such a good character. Jeez.
I haven't seen
Yeah.
Vampire Diaries at all, but I have seen Umbrella Academy.
Yeah, Umbrella Academy is really good.
Yeah, I'm blown out of how they turned a comic into a show that well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was really good. It was really good. So yeah, I think Umbrella Academy was like, ugh. But I want to make games that, like, even Umbrella Academy is cool because it's not like the whole show is about mental health at
Yeah.
all. But the characters, they're all dealing with things. It's
Yeah.
like very real. And like
Yeah.
even Vanya and Allison, like, they're all dealing, they all have their own struggles. And I think that for my personal taste, I'm not sure other people might dislike it, but like, those are my favorite types of characters to watch because I can relate to them.
Yeah.
They're not perfect. I don't really like perfect characters. Perfect meaning like one-dimensional. Not necessarily like Rey from Star Wars. I'm not one of those people that's like, I hate the new Star Wars movies because Rey sucks. Like, I'm not in that camp. But like, there are characters that I'm just like, I wish I could relate to you more.
Yeah.
Have you seen Better Call Saul?
No, I have not seen Better Call Saul.
There are some characters that you're gonna like. They're
Yeah.
real. They're very real.
That's what I heard
on a
about Breaking
lot of
Bad too,
aspects.
because I didn't
Yeah.
watch Breaking Bad. Oh no.
I mean,
That's
you don't
okay.
need to watch Breaking Bad to understand
Oh, for sure.
or to see Better Call Saul.
Oh, that's cool.
They're kind of separate, but they're trying to get them together in one point. And right now, I've been watching it with my girl, and you really see people emotions and things. They play with emotions real well, being like advocates or lawyers,
Yeah.
and they being lawyers, they have feelings too and get frustrated and everything. It's a very human series.
Mm-hmm.
I
That
think
sounds really good.
I think the kind of characters that like make you not agree with them but understand where they're coming from.
Yeah.
That's one of the mwah, chef kiss, like the chat says, like
Yeah.
Tapioca said. But
Yeah, definitely. I
really-
see in
Yeah,
the
go
chat
ahead.
here, I see some people saying definitely adding. I haven't read the books. I need to read the books. Definitely adding Vampire Diaries to my watch list. Same. Yeah, watch it. Don't hate it right away. It gets better. See, especially when Klaus comes in. By that time, like when Klaus comes in, when Klaus leaves, if you don't like the show after that, then it's okay. Some of the later seasons are a little, but like the first few seasons, especially when Klaus is on the show, that show is sick. It's so good. I really like it. So highly recommend. Gamer approved. Let's do one of these. Gamer approved.
Tapioca also said that everyone's hating on Abby from The Last of Us does for being like imperfect, but she said that she loved every character's complexity. So I think that's a
I haven't
really good-
played it. I haven't played The
Oh.
Last of Us 2.
There's
It's
been a
really
lot of-
it's
I-
really good. I don't like
Yeah.
The Last of Us.
I wasn't a
Gameplay.
huge. I liked it okay, Last of Us, but yeah, I'm super excited for The Last of Us 2.
But I've seen some gameplay and everything, and it's really good on the narrative part. They
Yeah,
go really well with telling you the story and how the characters feel, because every character feels something, and they're really complex.
yeah.
yeah.
I'm excited. I was thinking about getting it day one, but my PlayStation 4 is like the first gen PlayStation 4. So
Okay.
whenever I turn it on, it sounds like an airplane, like
Yeah, like
and
a
I'm
jet
like,
engine.
okay, the graphics for The Last of Us 2, like I think when I played Horizon Zero Dawn on my PS4, some parts like I know I was getting like 15 frames a second. I just
Yeah.
was. There's no way I wasn't. So I was like, I'll just wait for the PS5 and then I'll get my PS5 and then I'll play The Last of Us 2 because I want like the full experience.
Yeah,
So
you're gonna have it.
yeah, I'm super excited. There's also a rope in The Last of Us 2.
That is
Uh,
amazing.
that is
Completely
amazing.
Yeah.
And
and
I'm making a rope right now in one of my games, and I wish I could just steal that rope, but that's a 6-figure rope that they made.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
Yeah, and also give it a shot to Hellblade.
yeah, I'll actually write that down because that sounds really cool, and I love Vikings. Like
Yeah, it's not really Vikings. It's a weird mythology, but
yeah, that sounds cool though.
it's
Like
kind of
battling and
related, kind of
Yeah.
related to them. And the main character has a schizophrenia, so that's really cool.
sounds
that
really cool.
They explain to you how she dealt with it in a certain way.
One
Yeah.
of the coolest things about it. Well, when I was in Mexico, I had an Oculus, and it's actually on VR. There's a VR version of Hellblade, so it's actually
Oh, that sounds
quite more immersing. Like if it was already immersing enough when you play it with all the ambientation and the voices and everything, seeing it in VR is completely different experience and it's completely mind blowing. Like
Yeah.
totally.
I'll play it in VR then. I'll hook up my VR. That sounds really cool. That sounds super sick.
Yeah.
I like really interesting gameplay like that and things. I think I've actually seen like a preview for Hellblade. Because the schizophrenia part sounds familiar because I remember being like there being a game and me being like, oh, that looks cool. It sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's
There's-
really cool.
Yeah. But it's super exciting. I'm super happy that I was on the podcast. This is such a good show. Sorry if I was talking. I feel like I monologued a lot, but it's fitting
No,
because in the
that's-
game, that's
Oh,
what
it's
Nathan
okay.
does. So
That's completely okay.
It's completely okay that we're here for you to talk and share the experience creating in the game.
Yeah.
Thank you.
After all, it's a platform for you to share your experience, and you're the
Yeah.
focus of all of it.
oh, thank you.
We're just to close one more time. Does anyone in the chat have
Any questions?
Questions, comments? We're gonna wait a little bit. If they do not, we're gonna go right away with the raid.
Every time I watch somebody with basic understanding of game dev, they all lost for The Last of Us 2. Yeah, I'm super excited. I'm really excited for The Last of Us 2.
Yep.
Any other
when
last
is-
minute questions or anything?
Or any comment? What I'm gonna say is go ahead and play Non-Essential, guys. I place it on the chat.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's absolutely
Yay.
a really amazing game, and I have literally no words for it. I was really mind blown, and it really relates to what I think all of us been going through with this global pandemic and being away from each other. So
Also, I shamelessly plugged my Twitter in the
that's
Fine.
fine. Go
Louis
ahead.
Squid chat here,
That's
Completely
fine.
fine.
Go
just in
ahead.
case.
I have one.
Okay.
Cass has one more question. She's writing it, so we're gonna wait.
Perfect.
I can wait for it.
The stream setup looks so nice too, by the way. I'm looking at
Oh,
it now.
Thank you.
It
I
looks so
appreciate
pretty. The
I
sky
appreciate
in
it.
the background. That's so cool.
That's actually
Well, thank
recorded from
you.
my living room.
Oh wow, that's a lot
Yeah,
of clouds. Is that a
it
time
is.
lapse or is the clouds moving that fast?
No, it's a time lapse, but we do get a
Okay.
lot of clouds over here.
It's
Like
like whoa.
we live right next to mountains, so
That's
there's
awesome.
always a lot of clouds. It's always raining, and yeah.
Hey, just like Seattle, we're in good company.
There
It's
you
always doing that here too.
go. um,
So
but
fun.
like before going with the last question, like again, thank you so much, Brad, for taking the
Oh
time
yeah.
of and speaking with us
Thank you
about
for
your
having
game.
me. This has been so fun. Any chance I get to talk and talk about um, talk with other developers, talk with streamers, talk with anyone interested in games, and just like about like what goes on. Um, One of the big things I believe like that I'm really interested in and passionate in is like sort of lowering the veil for people of like, okay, this game exists, but like, what's the story behind it? What's like the reason behind it, or how was it made, or what was development like? I really like being able to um, share those things with people so that people know that like um, people, especially people who don't game develop, like a lot of times, I think sometimes people think of games as like like this is a game. I'm gonna play this game. Like
Yeah.
okay, cool. I played the game, um, and they don't think of it as like people making the games behind it. Um, so any chance I get the honor to talk about like a game and like from a perspective of like making it or knowing anything about game development and like sort of like educational but like not really kind of way, I really appreciate it. So and this
Yeah.
is such a cool podcast
Totally.
too. I wish you both the best. I think this is super
Thank you.
important.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
So the question came
Yeah.
through. Do you want to read it or do you want me to?
Yeah. Cast stream asked in the chat. Did you have some close encounters with mentally ill friends or family members that inspired you to make the game, or it was just for you?
Yes. This one this one was a little bit definitely friends, definitely myself for this game, a little bit my family, but this one was definitely like especially from um a lot of my friends were like, and me, we didn't have jobs, and we were sitting around the house and like pandemic stuff, like not going anywhere. So I think I made this game for with focusing on like what I went through and what my friends went through, especially. Um, but family, I think I probably did talk like, especially some things I probably did draw like on my family references from. My family has a little um a little more there's a little more mental health things going on. um so I didn't really touch on any of the extremes of that. It would have been a very different game. um but yes, I did base it a lot on myself, a lot on my friends, some on my family, I'm sure, but majority myself and my friends, definitely.
Yeah.
Like a combination. And then ultimately, I made the character. As soon as I made the character and figured out who the character was, I sort of started giving the character a life of his own. So it's not necessarily Nathan isn't necessarily like me. It isn't necessarily like my friends, but like it started off as like a combination of things, and then his own life started to come out, and the character developed a life of his own and a voice of his own. So yeah, super happy about that
Awesome.
too, because that's that was exciting to write something where it's like it got to a point where I was like, what would Nathan say about this? Okay, like Nathan would say this about it. Like getting in the mind of a character you created and like just knowing almost instinctually maybe what the character would think if like this happened or this happened. So
Yeah, Castro.
that was a great question though. Yeah, it's an amalgamation, or how do you say
amalgamation of experiences.
Amalgamation of experiences. Yes, absolutely. That's what it was. It was like a character soup that came alive and hates the metric system.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Well, thank you, Gus, for the question. Thank you, Brad, for
thank you.
Your
yes, thanks for
time,
having me.
for sharing your experience, for everything. We really, really appreciate you having here.
Absolutely.
Having come here and sharing about your game and your views of making more games like this, which I think is
thank
really
you.
awesome.
Yes, more games. More games like this. Yay.
Yay. Well, thank you so much for this. I'm going to go back to Spanish to let out the stream.
Absolutely.
Muchas gracias a las personas que estuvieron en el chat. De nuevo, muchas gracias, Brad, por estar con nosotros. De nuevo en un episodio de HP. En la siguiente semana vamos a tener a 2 personas que trabajan en creación de contenido. Los 2 son streamers, pero también trabajan haciendo temas cinematográficos. Y van a contarnos un poquito de su experiencia sobre cómo han vivido el proceso de estar en esta industria. De nuevo, muchas gracias, chat. Thank you so much, Brad, for being here. Y para terminar ya el stream, pues nos vamos a ir con la recomendación de que vayan a jugar el juego de Brad. Está aquí en el chat. Aquí está en el chat, por favor, jueguenlo. De verdad, increíble. Y pues nos vamos también con el raid del final. We're gonna be raiding someone. If you have someone... also, go follow Brad on Twitter. Here's his Twitter over here. And Brad, if you have someone you would like us to raid or anything, it would be cool.
We can go ahead and raid them.
Let's see. None of my friends are on. Your call. Whoever you think. That would have been fun if one of my friends was on, but
if you want to go with your friends, we can go ahead. Did it?
Okay, yeah. We're gonna go with one streamer. She's a psychologist, but she's
perfect.
Also a full-time streamer. Her name is Jess. Her Twitch channel is called Jess Stage, and she usually streams about games like Legend of Zelda. She was also streaming about Mass Effect a couple of days ago. But most importantly, she takes some days to stream about mental health and lets people ask her questions about it. So we're gonna go rate her. It's a really great channel. Actually, Chucho knows her. But yeah, thank you so much again. We're gonna do the raid right now.
Thank you. Oh yeah, raid time.
There you go. In 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See you guys.
Bye. Adios.